Hello, it's Stephen here. I thought I would bring you another quick video on October skies. Now I realise it's near the end of October, but there's a couple of interesting events I want to talk about before the end of the month, and then I'll do another video in November. But let's get started. So this is the 19th of October when I'm filming this, and the time is 10 p.m. and we're looking south, and the most obvious and bright object you will see is Jupiter. I'm sure many of you have seen it over the last several weeks. Incredibly bright. It was at opposition not that long ago, still very bright in the sky. And further down to the south west is Saturn, much dimmer. But look out for those two gas giants. If we swing further to the east, Mars will be rising. Again, Mars has been creeping higher and higher. As we go towards winter, it's becoming more and more visible in the late evening. By about 10 p.m. it will have risen low towards the east. And what's interesting about Mars at the moment is it's currently within a very familiar constellation, Taurus the Bull. Hopefully you can see here the two horns of the bull extending from right to left. Mars currently sandwiched in between the two horns of Taurus. It has a distinct red colour due to the surface full of iron oxide, and you can see that really clearly naked eye, which is very rewarding to do. And of course all three planets look great in a telescope. I really encourage you to do that. So just sticking in this area of the sky, there's some interesting objects to scan with your binoculars potentially. The Hyades and the Pleiades open star clusters are two lovely binocular targets, adolescent groups of fairly young, hot stars that haven't quite spread out to join the general distribution of stars yet, but will do so over progressive millions of years into the future. And the first thing I want to talk about in this region of the sky is, if we fast forward now to the 20th, so Thursday the 20th, we are going to have the peak of the Orionids meteor shower. Now, some of you may know that Orion is currently peaking below Taurus in this shot. And if I just advance time and we go to 11 p.m, midnight, we see now that Orion has risen. The king of winter skies, of course, Orion, a very obvious constellation. And the Orionids meteor shower is going to peak on the morning or the wee hours of Friday, October 21st. So ideally you're going to have to stay out till after midnight until you can see the hunter rising. And the radiant of the Orionids, incidentally, is just round about here, where I'm zooming in on the top of the club. But as I keep saying, you do not need to look toward the radiant to see shooting stars from a meteor shower. They will appear to come from all directions. But the reason I'm showing you the radiant is you will always see more shooting stars the higher the radiant is in the sky. So if I advance time further to 1 a.m. and 2 a.m, notice how the hunter has risen now to a pretty reasonable altitude, and rates of meteors here will be greater. So in other words, you need to ideally stay up late, maybe 2-3 a.m. ideally. If you can't stay up that late, do head out at midnight anyway if it's clear, and chance your luck, you may see some bright meteors. The great thing this year is that there is no moon to spoil the party. So if you get clear skies, it could be a really good Orionids this year. Just set your expectations low, remember, with meteor showers. Don't expect to see anything too spectacular, and you may be pleasantly surprised. So that is the Orionids meteor shower peaking on the late evening of the 20th of October into the small hours of the 21st of October. Now, the next event I want to talk about, quite an exciting end to October, is on the 25th. So just bear with me while I advance to the 25th, Tuesday the 25th of October. and I'm going to advance time. And we're going to go to the morning. Now you'll notice that I've switched off daylight here, and you'll see why I've done that. I'm going to zoom in on the sun. So let's try and center the sun. So if you can imagine, in the morning, 9 AM, on Tuesday the 25th, the sun will rise as ever. But watch what happens as we progress time. The moon is going to eclipse the sun partially. So around about 10 AM on Tuesday, the eclipse will begin, and it will progress over 2 hours. So watch what happens as we go into 11 AM. We're round about at maximum occultation. Of course, this is a partial eclipse, so you're not going to see any sky blackening or darkening at all. Ideally, you will need to use a safely obscured telescope or binoculars or projection. Remember, never ever look at the sun without a proper safe filter on your telescope. That's all I'll say there. Please do your research. But if you have an appropriate filter, you will see the sun with a large chunk eaten out of it. And the maximum will be at about 11 AM. Let's keep going. 11:30, and round about noon, midday, the eclipse will end. So let me just go back. In fact, what I will do, let me show you the sort of thing you may see, because I've switched off daylight. Let's switch daylight back on. This is the kind of thing you might actually see. Let's go back in time. Can you see that? The moon eating a chunk out of the sun. So that's what you would see through an appropriately solar filtered telescope, going all the way back to 10 AM when the partial eclipse begins. So there we go, exciting stuff. There was a partial eclipse, I'm trying to think, was it a year ago or 2 years ago? I did a live stream then. It was a pretty good one actually. I believe up in the north of Scotland, we got really good conditions for it. Let me switch back on the night. There we go. So let me just go back to current time and see if there's anything else I want to talk about. Let's go to 10 PM again. And back to what we were talking about at the start of the video, Jupiter, Saturn, Mars. The only other thing I can mention then at the moment to keep this video nice and short is the Milky Way. Remember, under moonless skies, always worth looking out for the the summer triangle of Deneb, Altair and Vega mark the Milky Way, and the constellation of Cygnus the Swan, which swoops directly through it. So do look out for that. But I am going to keep this video short. I think that's all for just now. I will catch up with you again in November. Clear skies, everyone, and good luck.